John Morley, who I like, he's a Yorkshire sometimes. Turns out he's never done a lunch with, so he's doing that today. Put that one right. Digital consultant and a big Doctor Who fan and all sorts of other things. Do lunch with digital consultant and sometimes Yorkshire guest, John Morley. For lunch today, it's John Morley. Hello, John Morley.
Hello, Ian Syke. How are you, sir?
John's been on the radio before. He does Your Say. You did load. How long did you do TV reviews and stuff?
I used to do the evening show about 3.5, 4 years ago. Started during lockdown.
We had one of those conversations a little bit ago before Christmas along the lines of, you've not done lunch. You've not done lunch. You're doing lunch, so he's here.
Fair enough.
So lovely to have some time with you. Yeah. We're just talking Doctor Who because you share. I keep trying to find people to show off to about what I did before Christmas that I'm not allowed to talk about, and you're one of the best people I've found to brag about it, so we're doing that off air. But
fair enough.
Did you enjoy the Christmas specials? The anniversary specials and the Christmas special?
I've got mixed feelings on it. I don't want to turn this into a complete TV review, although this is obviously what I did for the last few years. I thought the Christmas one was not a bad start. And they actually showed fostering adoption in a really nice light, because obviously that's something that's close to my heart.
You've got two adopted boys, yeah.
I have, yes. So it's nice to actually show that rather than it being
Terry Russell T Davis, isn't it? To just sort of normalise that shaped family?
Yeah, I think so. And it's nice to... I mean, there's a lot more that goes on to it than just that, but the fact that, historically, whenever you've seen... storybooks for adopted children. Superman was adopted. Paddington Bear was adopted. Yeah. Years old progress, but now they can go, the Doctor. So it's a bit more of a character that's more recent that they can engage with. As for the 60th, it was okay for the most part, but it did feel like tick box exercise in some cases, which was a shame over some stories. But
we'll carry this on off air. But look, whenever I introduce you on Your Say, I sort of make some vague sort of explanation about you working for Microsoft or being a consultant, or I don't really know what you do for a living. What do you do for a living exactly?
You're asking me. I mean, the consultant answer could be it depends, which you say that a lot. I've been in IT for getting on 20 odd years, and I've run support desks. I've been project manager. I've done architecture work for public and private sector, and what I do for Microsoft now for the last 3 years is kind of bringing all that together to try and basically help embed the technology that people have bought. So it could be anything that's on your computer, like Office 365.
Because my perception is you're not like a computer nerd through and through. You understand application for business, right?
No, I need to know enough about how the technology works, and then depending on whether you're a council, you're a private company, it's to try and help you operationalise that from a people and process perspective, if that kind of makes sense.
It's as close as I'm going to get to understanding it, I think.
So you get all the techies that do the whiz-bang stuff. I'm the one that says, well, if you're not pressing that button,
how
you're
did
not
you end up working in IT? Because you did international relations at uni.
I did, yes. Well, I spent 3 or 4 years coming out of uni not having a clue. I was having a new job every 2 or 3 months, it seemed, at the time. But
quitting? Getting the push? Getting bored?
Getting bored, finding other roles. I mean, I have been laid off 6 times in my life, so it's not all about John bitting and bobbing. But when I was out of uni, I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really get on any graduate schemes, so I started off handing out cash and stamping cheques at Yorkshire Bank, to hiring out vehicles, to cleaning toilets. So I've done quite a lot of humbling things and real things in my time. But to answer your question about IT, I just applied for a job and then just kept nagging until they gave me an answer sort of 3 months later. But what's memorable is I literally fell on my backside on the way into the interview. So when I say I fell into IT, I tripped over my feet, and I don't know if it was a sympathetic job or not, but I started working with Derby City Council nearly 20 years ago.
And there you are now with Microsoft. Alveston's where you grew up, isn't it?
Yes.
And holidays. We always ask this question about where did you grow up and tell me about school and going on holidays. Camping, you wrote, in the Peak District / Osnabrück.
Yes. So a few years ago, there was a charity, I don't know if they're still going or not, which was called the Derby Children's Friendship Group, which became Derby Kids Camp, which a number of volunteers have been involved in. My parents were involved when it was not long set up in the 80s. So one year we would have a group of underprivileged kids from Derby / Osnabrück would be bussed over. We'd go to Wetton for a week, and then the following year we'd reciprocate by going to Osnabrück.
So you went because your parents were working there?
Essentially, yes.
Did you have a good time?
It was different, learning different language. Well, it wasn't so much learning languages, but learning not everybody spoke English at the age of 4 and 5 was certainly eyebrow raising. Learning the word gift in German is not what you think it is. It's poison and toxic, not something to unwrap.
And you recalled an early memory of being on Radio Derby.
Yes.
I mean, at what sort of age? And
This
why?
would have been a similar sort of age, probably about 6, 7 years old.
Right.
In the late 80s,
What was
early
going
90s.
on there then? How'd you get on the radio there?
So there were two early memories that I have. There was one where when I started at school, Wilmorton Primary, which is now Lakeside, having moved half a mile down the road on London Road. And the then headmaster, David Backhouse, was just recording sound bites and pretending to be Gypsy Rose Lee, predicting the future.
Right.
And one of them was, John quite likes snooker, having been to the assembly rooms and seen a young Ken Doherty beat Stephen
When
Hendry.
they had him at the assembly rooms,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just through me being on that, and then some friend of a friend had said, "Oh, they heard you at 2:00 in the afternoon saying you want to be a snooker player." And I hasten to say I've probably played once in the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Wow. Have you got that audio anywhere?
I wish I had. It was late 80s, early 90s is all I can tell you.
I feel like in theory it's on our archives somewhere. But
I'm sure
in
there'll be
half a rigmarole trying to troll through
A
that.
bit like an
lot.
Indiana Jones
We
going to that
sometimes
massive
do it.
warehouse with the crates and so on.
No, there's a load of hard drives sitting in the engineer's office. These days it's all been digitised. And Wembley, 1993. Derby fans will know what this is. Anglo-Italian Cup final.
Oh, yes.
Not to be Derby's day, but a good day
it
out.
wasn't, but it was I think at that point, my first ever football match. So going to
That's
the
a
old
big one.
Yeah. And I thought, well, this is an interesting one to remember. The old running, the greyhound track round the pitch, and about 300 Cremonese fans in one corner and 30,000 Derby fans. And I just remember the trip of the day out more than the scoreline, because it was a really good memory. And then I used to go to the baseball ground around that time as well.
I never went to a game at the old Wembley.
It was it's a bit of a dump of a ground, if I'm honest. I mean,
On which note,
I mean, at the very front, they had plastic moulded stools to sit on, not actual
wow.
seats.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the comfiest, being a 10-year-old constantly
So
wriggling
they have
around.
improved it, much as we moaned the two
Oh,
towers when they weren't. All right, let's play some music. We'll chat some more. John Morley doing lunch with me this afternoon. Work this out. I bet John Morley's worked this out already.
Quite possibly, if you tell me who the DJ was.
Might read.
Oh, right, yeah.
John Morley's doing lunch with me this afternoon. So John is a tech consultant. He's an Ulverston lad. He's a fellow sci-fi fan, which is always a source of great conversation. It's nice having you a bit longer to talk in the records about Comic-Cons and Doctor Who and stuff like that. School, I normally touch on. Tell me if you want to or not, because you've written down a list of words about your school time. Studious, tearaway, bullied, knowledgeable.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. You know, I came away with decent grades. I'd like to think that despite its reputation, Noel Baker did educate me pretty well, and I still do go drinking occasionally with some of the teachers.
Were you bullied because you were smart?
No, I don't think so. I think it was because more of the having red hair more than anything else. It makes me stand out, and I've had everything from a good old kick into a stabbing over it. So, you know, it's
A stabbing?
Yes.
At school?
At work, actually, when on my way to work.
Wow. I had no idea about that.
It's not something that you want to make a big deal out of, but it shows you how severe it
No, but it
was.
is a big deal. And it's absurd, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Extraordinary thing.
Yeah, children say things to each other, but I suppose it's just made me watch my children like a hawk as to whether they are being a bully or whether they're being bullied. So I just try and drill that into them, that it's not acceptable when they are being certain behaviours that they shouldn't be doing.
Talking about your children, I know that there are certain things you don't want to go there chatting about, but we mentioned that you adopted your two lads.
Yes.
Was that a thing that you set out to do? Did you foster first? Was it a long journey to adopt them?
Yeah, it's basically the classic journey of you try the natural way, then you try getting help through fertility, and then for one reason or another.
Is that emotionally exhausting?
Yes, it was. Particularly, I think it's probably more so for my wife than anything, because, you know, us as men don't tend to get involved an awful lot. It's very easy for us in many ways, but having all the poking and the probing and the tests and the drugs and all that kind of stuff did take quite an awful lot of time.
Over a long period
Jo,
as
bless
well.
her. But she's an incredibly resilient lady. Probably, like I've said in my
She puts up with you, mate.
she's,
I mean, you know.
yeah. I often say she's a single mum of three, so
How
she has
did
to
you
put up
two
with me.
get together? When did you meet?
So we met Christmas Eve 2002.
I like this story already. Yeah.
On St Peter Street, walking up to Zanzibar. when that was still a thing, which is now Cosmo. I was home for Christmas from uni, and with a friend of mine who happened to know her friend, and chatted a bit of rubbish, and then later on saw her in the nightclub, and I said, do you want rescuing? Because there was some creepy looking blokes around her, and then we just kept in touch from there. And I'd given it the big one, saying, I'm a regional manager for Debenhams, whereas really I was a part timer at Debenhams, and I was a hard up student. And then when she came to visit me in Lincoln thereafter, we just kind of kept in touch, and after a long-distance relationship for 6 months of coming up on a Friday night and getting the train back, she moved in with me whilst I was in my final year of uni, and she transferred her job as a travel agent to Newark. So there's a lot of commitment and effort on her part. But it mellowed me as a 19, 20-year-old to take a lot more pride in keeping the house tidy and getting up at certain times and being a lot more structured in my life than just, my pants can wait for 6 weeks to be clean.
Different priorities.
But,
or more awareness.
With her being that slightly bit older, I think she's just a bit more house proud, and worked really well, and we got married in 2005, so here we are, 19 years later.
I was going to say,
we've been together 21
coming
years
up
now,
next year then, And it's not... I mean, it's very sadly, it's really not an unusual thing these days. But you've written down that you've had your ups and downs with your mental health over the years.
Yeah, mental health's been a tough one. I mean, we talked about jobs and so on, and of course, when you come out of university, you're ready to take on the world. You're a raving communist, or think you can just walk into a job. And although I'd been working in retail and different jobs at uni and prior to uni, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So that flip-flopping from jobs and so on, and it was the first time I kind of battled with depression in 2004. And then I've kind of had bouts of it ever since, really. But I've kind of learnt to deal with it as best I can. I've found hobbies that I get into, which are completely the opposite of what you might expect. And in
terms of finding the things, the tools, the techniques that work for you, is that trial and error? Have you had help with that? Or?
Yeah, very much so. I did a talk on this at work, actually, not that long ago, because there's still a stigma about blokes talking about mental health. I mean, several people I know who are fellas have sadly committed suicide in recent years. And, they're similar age to myself, late 30s, early 40s. And I think had they have had the opportunity just to talk, that would have helped. So
I think there's a temptation, isn't there, to say, you see, you hear people chuntering on about it these days. But the reality is, as you say, so many just think, I go banging on about mental health. I'm not going to start talking about my feelings. And it's such a waste.
I agree. There are people who don't get it, and that's fine. But it's the ones who keep quiet and the ones who bottle everything up. And it tends to be, I think ladies are just more resilient because they're good at talking to each other about anything and everything. But us gents, we're getting there.
See, everyone's different, aren't they? But one person's just getting on and dealing with things is actually bottling up unhealthily.
Yeah. Which is why I'm grateful I'm in a position where I've got a private therapist who I talk to once a month.
Good times and bad, once a month.
Yeah, been through some really rough times because my wife had a cancer scare about 18 months ago, so she was in hospital through that. So I was thrust upon being the single parent for the week and being educated from her hospital bed as to how much you put in the washing machine and what to feed the kids and so on. But, I think the easiest thing to do is to learn about this stuff. I say become an expert, but what do the pills do? What chemicals go on in your brain? You don't need to become a full-on psychologist, but if you can understand it more in a physical capacity, like if you break an arm or you pull a muscle or whatever, you need to know what therapy you need to get yourself back together. And I continue to do that to this day, and that's why I'm quite proud of that. And I talk about it openly. And as I've always said, if you take nothing else from it, don't let things get so bad that you put yourself in that position in the first place.
Quite right. Let's talk about something good. Let's talk about something really positive. Where have you been that's brilliant in the world? Because I know you've travelled a bit.
Yeah. I've been quite fortunate with my wife Jo being a travel agent up until a few years ago when she became a full-time mum. So we've been able to go to the Far East. So I love places like Japan, Singapore, Bali, Hong Kong, definitely up there. I think the 2-week trip that we did between Tokyo, Kyoto, 2012, so it's before Japan really became big with the Olympics, although that kind of was kibosh because of COVID, but absolutely loved it because we went everything from the Shinkansen to Studio Ghibli Museum, because I'm a big fan of that. We went to various shrines. The only thing we didn't do was go to an onsen.
What?
An onsen. It's like a Japanese thermal bath, a bit like a Turkish bath, but...
So you're looking at me like I know anything about Japanese culture. I'm just intrigued. You know, I get the Studio Ghibli thing reference, but
I'm just a bit of an otaku and a Japanese enthusiast, and I've even talked about YouTube channels as well. So if I ever had a chance to go back,
so what did you like the most in Japan? I mean, Tokyo, for example, as I understand it, is just a humongous city. It's a mad city, or the beautiful rural. You know, you talk about the shrines and things like that.
I think the one thing that surprised me the most about Japan is things just work. You know, you see these ridiculous stories about the trains leaving 20 seconds early and they've had to apologise and so on. That can become a little bit humorous and a little bit OTT because everybody's a collective society. But the whole convenience things just work. A bus will turn up on time, a train will turn up on time. Restaurants, convenience stores, you know, everybody just gets on. Which obviously has its own positives and negatives, but that's the bit that probably surprised me the most. You think about all the wacky culture and all the cartoons and the tentacles and all. I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but it's just a very efficient country where things just work, even in the middle of the sticks, which I found amazing.
Let's play another song, chat a little bit more. John Morley is doing lunch with me this afternoon on BBC. A little more lost on BBC Radio Derby. It's a flashback after one, but it's 25 to 1 at the moment. John Morley's here doing lunch with me this afternoon. John Morley, clay pigeon shooter.
Yes.
Is that you have done? You do? What is that? You just
well, it's one of the hobbies I was telling you about.
Yeah.
It's I've got into different kinds of shooting. Actually, I do clay pigeon. I'm not very good at it. But I've learned not to get bruises in my shoulder.
You have to carry on doing things and you get better at them, right?
In my shoulder, yeah. It's good fun. But I also do target shooting as well. So, which you need obviously a firearms license, not just a shotgun certificate for. And you think, oh, you've had mental health issues. Why would they give you, lethal sticks? But the way I've learnt about it is, it's if you just be open and honest with people.
Yeah.
And the amount of safety and procedures drilled into you around this stuff. Obviously, they're not just going to grant not just the tickets, but the clubs obviously take safety very seriously. And for me, it's just a chance just to get out and clear the mind for an hour at a time, and it's a good chance for the boys to come along. And
I guess it's focus, isn't it, shooting?
Yes. Yeah, and even if you miss, you know what? It's just being outside, back to nature and so on. And I thought I get a bit bored with doing the gyms and the running, and so obviously fat, firm and 40 rather than fit, firm and 40, which was on the mug of my old teacher, which is why I changed the first word. But I just enjoy getting out and about, and you just have a bit of a laugh. So I go to a club near Swarkston, and I go to a club in Nottingham. You just rock up, have a plink. And, if you're really into it, then you can talk about that. Or I talk to people like you and I talking about Comic-Con and anime and stuff. So it's just great to get out and meet different people.
People are sometimes fascinated by me talking about going to Comic-Cons. I mean, my son started us going, but I love them.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily quite get it, I don't think. I think it's a bit weird. It's people dressing up. It's, queuing up to see people. It's watching stuff you could see on TV, people talking about shows they're in and films they're in and things. What is it for you that you enjoy about those occasions?
Well, it's definitely all the things you said. Let's not shy away from it. But the thing I like about it is, I mean, when I take my family, we like looking at the costumes, but we're not a cosplay family. It's certainly an expensive hobby for those that do it, so fair play to them. But I tend to only go if I think it's of interest to... Well, 99% of the time the wife would say, you just want to see somebody there. Right, who is it? Who do you want to see? And we would kind of go from there. But if I think it's reasonably local or if there's something that the kids might enjoy, then I'll go along. But I don't know. I just think it's just a day out. I know you've been some good ones and I've been some absolutely terrible ones.
There's a new one in Derby this summer,
Yes.
Monopoly Mania at the arena.
I'm looking forward to it because Monopoly have done a really good job with cons. They tend to be just that little bit more welcoming than some of the others where they just want to squeeze every pound they've got out of you. They actually put on quite a lot of freebie things to look at, like the Game of Thrones throne or the Back to the Future car and stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff that my children enjoy because you've paid money to get in. Why do you then have to pay hundreds of pounds?
Yeah, there are events in London where you pay to get in and then everything else, literally everything else you could do once you're in, you're paying for. And that's just exploitative.
That's the bit that grinds me. Yeah. But I just look at it as another day out. There are some people who live it, but for me, it's as and when I can afford it, and as and when, begrudgingly when I want to meet somebody.
How did you end up? We talked about you as a boy, coincidentally ending up on Radio Derby. How did you end up doing stuff here? I mean, with Martin first.
Yes.
I know you do Your Say with me now. How did that start?
So it started out by, I think it was it Hannah who used to work here, put something out on social media about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just responded to that. And then throughout COVID, it was we did it via the telephone, and then progressively moved into the studio. And
That
then
was a strange time.
it was bizarre, yeah. And then I met Tanvir, who was, can you do this? And then we met him down Ulverston Park about 2 or 3 years ago and said, yeah, we'd like some more Your Sayers. You can talk, so shove my microphone in front of you.
Do you enjoy that? I mean, you carry on coming back, but... Because I see it from a different angle, don't I? I don't know what...
Well, you do this for a living, don't you?
I don't understand the idea of... Do you know what I mean? What's in it for you coming in and being sort of made to wriggle and come down on an opinion on things and, you know...
The thing I've got out of it the most is probably more of a professional networking thing. So I've met people here at Radio Derby who, I've learnt from or
we are a
friends.
bit like a business network. We introduce two different people every
time. But there are
time.
also some of you, your guests here. You know, you have business owners, you have ex-police officers, you've got consultants, you've got people who...
Imagine being me, the people I meet every week, you know?
Yeah, but you look at it, though, and I've got so much out of it. I'm actually going to a network event at a local coffee shop next week, which some of the people who have been on this show have invited me to.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So don't underestimate that personal, professional side of meeting people, and the fact that I've got a gob as well, and that's what it fits brilliantly with Your Say.
Would you do this? Is this a job you'd ever consider?
What in your seat?
Yeah,
or
it's a diminishing returns business, but I mean, would you enjoy this? Do you reckon?
I've hosted events and I've been a speaker at conferences.
You were saying you just dropped into conversation earlier on, giving a talk at work. You know?
No, I do enjoy presenting stuff as long as I know. I can blag, but I like to know a little bit about what it is I'm presenting. But I'm comfortable whether it's hosting or facilitating.
The other thing that's on your questionnaire that we asked you to do before this, we say, tell us something that might surprise people about you. Apart from the shooting, I was in Evita in 1995 in Nottingham.
Yes. When I could still hit a high note without needing a swift kicking.
That didn't just happen out of the blue. Where does that journey start?
It did, so to speak, because when I was a younger lad, when I were a lad, I used to, believe it or not, have a decent singing voice. So I used to be in the school choir, church choir, and so on. And there was
school productions.
Occasionally, yes, I did do a couple of solos, and there was a drama teacher, Andy Price, God rest his soul, who died a year or so ago, who actually rung me up in the middle of a maths lesson because they had internal phones back then, and said, "Oh, we've got this production, and I'm involved with Stagecoach." Now, Stagecoach being a big national company, I wasn't never involved with them, but he just asked me to do a bit of an audition for him. And then I went to so many rehearsals, and then for £5 an appearance for 10 minutes worth of work, 20 minutes worth of work, whatever it was.
In the 90s.
In the mid-90s. So it's like, wow, I've made 70 quid for 3 weeks' work. So you'd sit around for quite a long time.
That sounds utterly exploitative.
Absolutely. They made an absolute fortune because you had a full house.
But what were you doing then?
So I was singing... Salve Regina in the first,
so it's like sort of crowd scene stuff.
Yeah. And then in a later one, they get you to just, like you say, crowd scene, playing a scout, boy scout, or whatever, and standing still as best you can for 10 minutes whilst the rest of the company are still singing.
Was it exciting though?
It was interesting, yeah. I mean, the highlight I always remember, I shouldn't really be saying this, was in the changing rooms. We used to do voiceovers, for want of a better phrase, of people who used to hang around outside the door. Excuse me, mate, can I just... and there's either be the BBC trying to do Vox Pops, or it'd be people begging or whatever. And that was the highlight as a 12-year-old. We would pass the time, because of course it was 3 hours between scenes, because it's a long show.
A lot of hanging around.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then the other bit was, again, an interview Radio Derby a year later when I was still doing my my brass band stuff. We were at the Assembly Rooms doing...
Hang on, where's that come from? That hasn't cropped up yet. Brass band, what do you play?
Yeah, it's been marching bands playing trumpets and euphoniums.
Do you still play an instrument now? Can you get a note out of one? Can you play
I could badly. Yeah, I used to be really into music when I was younger. Then I got into DJing at uni, so there's a little bit of crossover there. But I was in an East of England orchestral concert, which I got a microphone shoved in front of my face at school saying, tell us about the piece. And I'm like, it's good. So you can tell the vocabulary's improved in the last 25, 30
You've
years.
definitely improved that technique if you've declined on the trumpet a little bit. What do you want from the future? Are you someone that sort of sets goals, or are you just enjoying the ride?
Oh, I mean, I've kids set goals. I mean, we're in January. The amount of resolutions that start on the 1st and end by the 5th. It's I kind of try and take it one day at a time. You know, I look forward to certainly holidays, watching my children develop as well, because you know, it doesn't seem that long ago we had them and they were 18 months old, and now they're walking, talking people. My 6-year-old would be a Tarantino movie with the amount of foul language he comes on. Stop there. I just never stop learning, and just I don't tend to plan more than sort of 6 to 12 months ahead at a time. So as long as I'm getting paid, doing a job I enjoy, my kids are developing, and I'm not upsetting the wife too much, just take it a month, a week at a time is my view.
It's a nice summary on life. It's really nice to see you. Always is. Thank you for coming in today.
Likewise, thank you very much, Ian.
John Morley.
The FA Cup and the